So here is Dr. Teresa A. Powell, our second executive in residence. She's going to give us some of her thoughts and then open up an opportunity for some questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like I'm at church. I am Baptist, so of course it would be a Baptist church. And you know why I say that? Because everybody's sitting in the back. So for the people who are sitting on the first two rows, I'm going to inform Dr. Parrott that they get double their salary. You turkeys. Now see what you don't get when you don't come on up to the front. And I'm standing behind this podium because I have my notes here, and I want to make sure that I'm able to refer to them. So forgive me for the formality of this. I really wish I could start off and tell you some dirt about the good doctor, because he's not here, so I could tell it. And now that I'm being recorded, I can't tell it. But and my offer for the double salary, I see people coming in, it's over. So, you know, they missed out too. But I really was going to do that. But I can tell you that you have one of the finest men that I know in Dr. David Parrott. And what you see is what you get. I want you to know, though, that the first time I met him, and after about the first 6 months or so of knowing him, he was in my office one day, and I said, my goodness, do you know every damn thing about every damn thing? It's true. Whether you have had an opportunity to sit with the vice president or not, it's a treat. He has a quote, a story, or something about everything. You can be talking about basket weaving. Oh, I know you heard this quote, or I know you know about this. It doesn't matter what the topic is. It can be sport, it can be babysitting, it can be basket weaving. He knows. So spend some time with him. And whatever you do, don't let him put you in a Jeep, because he works on Jeeps. That's he's wonderful. He had one Jeep. I rode in more Jeeps with Dr. Parrott than anything else. So he's one of the good guys, and I want you to know how much I absolutely adore him. And what you see honestly from Dr. Parrott is what you get. So you're the lucky ones, okay? I just want to say that. And come on up front. There's plenty of room up here. I just want to say that. But I'm delighted to be here, and I've had a wonderful time here. And so I think it's good that I have this opportunity to speak with you today. And I'm standing behind this podium because I need my notes. But what a privilege it is to be here today to share some of my thoughts with you. I hope to convey to you how intertwined the importance of values in a professional setting and the importance of staff development are. My professional journey to become a senior student affairs officer has been defined by my values. While I believe that is true for everyone, regardless of their chosen careers, student affairs is especially driven by values. We do what we do because we care. But while we extend that care and concern to students almost instinctively, sometimes we forget about ourselves, and sometimes we forget about our staffs. We need to remember to expand that field of concern to include our staffs and to include ourselves. We need to support each other, because this is what will keep our profession strong. And it is simply the right thing to do. We all have deeply rooted values. We must cultivate them in order to help each other to grow, both personally and professionally. And living our values ensures that those among us who need the most support to achieve equality will receive it. This is in line with your values here in the Division of Student Affairs. I just want to tell you a little bit about what led me to a career in student affairs. Like many of us, I didn't enter college to become a student affairs professional. I knew I wanted a good education. I grew up poor in the segregated South, and in spite of my family's socioeconomic status, we were wealthy and had no idea of what we really owned. What my parents gave each of their 10 children was free. We had love, wisdom, time, encouragement, and a set of values. They cared for us. They provided the basics in life for us. And even with just a 4th and 6th grade education, they knew that an education coupled with solid values and a strong purpose was the way out of poverty and the way to have a fulfilling life. They did all they could for us to make sure that each of us pursued a college education. And so I did. When I arrived at the private University of Pennsylvania as an undergraduate student, however, I experienced a culture shock. I need to digress just a little bit so I can paint this picture accurately by giving you some information about the University of Pennsylvania. First, do not confuse the University of Pennsylvania with Penn State University. I do not want to offend anybody in the audience who's a Penn State grad, especially Dr. Mary Kay Carradine. I don't want to offend her, but the University of Pennsylvania is an Ivy League university. It enrolls children of some of the wealthiest people in the world. My fellow students had attended the best boarding and preparatory high schools in the country. Penn is home to the first medical school in North America. It continues to boast the 7th largest endowment of any university in the country. Its distinguished alumni include 2 United States presidents, 3 Supreme Court justices, 35 Nobel laureates, 42 governors, and 33 United States senators. Do I need to say more about Penn? What in the world had I done? I had grown up in a homogeneous environment, one in which everyone was poor, and few people had even entertained the idea of attending college. I had no preconceptions about what college was be like when I started. A young African-American woman from the South at a northern, predominantly white university. To say fitting in was difficult is an understatement. I had to work hard to fit in. I'm not really sure that I ever really did, but I was comfortable in my own skin. But while I experienced difficulties on a cultural level, I never experienced difficulties on a values level. I never questioned who I was as a person. I was in the band. I played several instruments. And so I was in the band and attended all of the football games and the basketball games because I'm a sports fanatic and I played at those games. But I stayed in my room studying most of the time instead of going out with my friends. I didn't cheat on exams despite seeing other students do it. I studied and was prepared for every class despite seeing my peers not doing the same. The values my parents instilled in me helped me to persevere in one of the toughest environments I had ever been in. But my values alone would not have been enough to help me get through this situation. On a few memorable occasions, I was supported by others. There was no orientation program at Penn, but African American students who were entering their freshman year were greeted by African American upperclassmen. Freshman year could have been an uncomfortable and alienating experience, but it was made easy and familiar because of those students. I was left with the impression that I would be supported at Penn, and the strength of that feeling remained with me throughout my time there. Richard, one of the leaders of the African American group, became my peer advisor. He looked out for me. He made sure that I went to class. He made sure I selected the right classes. He taught me how to navigate the city where I needed to go, and he encouraged me to have fun. Eventually, I became a peer advisor myself. These experiences were mirrored by the experience that I had with an administrator. When I was a senior at Penn, I had completed all of my coursework a semester early, but I wanted to graduate with my class. So I stayed at Penn to take some graduate classes, and then I became ill and had to withdraw from the university. The dean of the college made that process effortless and assisted me with graduation and with the withdrawal processes. I thanked her, and she replied simply, "That's what I'm here to do." Helping students was like breathing air to her. She did it selflessly and with great care. The difficulties I had fitting in at Penn, combined with those memorable occasions of others helping me, led me to student affairs. It was a new profession at the time, but it was exactly what I felt that I was called to do. My purpose was to teach and to encourage, because outside of my immediate family, so few people had extended themselves to me in that way. Those who did left an indelible impression on my heart and made a tremendous difference in my life. I embarked on my student affairs journey, and I have no regrets. I wish I could say that the challenges that I faced as an undergraduate student lessened once I began my career, but they did not. Challenges don't evaporate. In some ways, they have become more painful as my career advanced. I expected more out of my supervisors and superiors in terms of guidance. I felt a lack of available support all the time. I know it sounds hard to believe, but in my first professional position in a large city, I was one of 2 African Americans at the entire university, which enrolled over 7,000 students. Nationally, there were very few African Americans and few women in the student affairs profession at that time. I worked hard and I did well in my career, but with some guidance and some staff development, I would have had access to a greater body of knowledge and had more backing. I would have felt invested in. This lack of investment bothered me tremendously. Even when I had the courage to ask for help, people would always say they were too busy or they simply ignored my request. In spite of this lack of professional development, I continued to advance. At a point in my career, I briefly moved into the academic affairs realm because I thought that it would help me to move up faster through the student affairs rank. At that time, I was in a role working with community college presidents and vice presidents for academic affairs. I was able to travel a little bit, which I had never been able to do. So this was what I thought a good job. I sat around the table with major players and had highly intellectual conversations. But I was going to work every day with a feeling of discontent. How is that possible? It was a colleague who spurred a re-examination of what I was doing. She said that she was able to move forward when she asked herself, Where do my gifts and talents meet the greatest need? And am I presently living life from that place? Her question resonated with me. When I heard her ask that question, I realized that my work had become more about what I thought others valued than an answer to my own calling. This was a path to my desired end, but my true calling was still the same, to teach and to encourage. The work I was doing was important work, and it needed to be done, but I was bored to death in that job. A turning point came in that job when I was able to hire a young woman to assist me in the work I was doing. Her job at that time was at a trucking company, and she was scheduling truck pickups and deliveries. After we started working together, I saw the beautiful possibilities for her. I knew in that moment that I needed to invest in her by coaching and advising her, and perhaps holding a space for her greatness until she could take hold of it for herself. As we worked together and I encouraged her and guided her, she absolutely flourished. She went on to earn her PhD and is currently a full professor at Emory University in Atlanta. She has written 2 published books and manuscripts galore. I followed her career, and I am so proud of everything that she has accomplished. While helping her, I was filled with so much inspiration that it shifted me back on course. It is with overwhelming gratitude that I realized that this is one of the major reasons that I am in student affairs. Once I understood why investing in others was crucial, I began to implement it in my daily life, and I tried to assist everybody that I could. I'm in my 2nd vice president's position at Temple, so I've hired a few associate vice presidents. I'm going to focus on one in particular. When I hired him, I was looking for someone with a certain skill set that I needed in order to continue to improve the division. He had no housing and residential life experience, which was a major piece of his responsibilities. But I knew that I could teach him how to do that part of his job. I was drawn to him as a candidate because of the values which he demonstrated. He was a talented young man of integrity, a leader, a collaborator, loyal, and had a strong work ethic. His values immediately connected me to him. I helped him to write a professional development plan, and then I provided him with intentional experiences that prepared him to deal with all parts of that job. We had marathon coaching sessions. He studied job descriptions. He met with other people in the field. He attended conferences and even found a way to work his passion into his residential and housing work. He read seminal works in the profession, and don't be surprised that most of those works were written by people here at the University of Florida. I encouraged and supported his involvement in professional associations. I also encouraged him to get an MBA because I thought that was important. I gave him grace and time to do that, and so he did. He wanted to be a vice president for student affairs, and I wanted to help him to get there. Now he has written a book, and he's in his 2nd vice president's position at a very large, prestigious university. I do not take the credit for where he is today. I simply invested in him. He did all the work to become a well-respected professional and vice president. Experiences like these have made it clear to me that supporting staff can be one of the most rewarding parts of the job. I could share more stories, but I think you get the picture. Of course, we make a tremendous investment in students, and we should, because that's why we were hired. That's what our jobs are. However, we can't forget staff. Staff, friends of friends, and even complete strangers come to me often for career advice and support. I am happy to give it to them, but I am troubled by what it signals, that as a general rule, no one has invested in them. I am not the only person investing in others. I think we have the best intentions, but each of us hopes that someone else is doing the work. And in an already busy day, it can be so time-consuming to take a few moments and spare them for anything other than clearly defined duties. But again, I want to stress that we all profit from helping each other out. The effort may be individual, but the reward is collective. The beautiful thing is we can all do it. Not just senior level staff, but also directors, associate directors, program coordinators, even entry-level professionals, housekeepers, maintenance staff. You don't need a formal program to help others. We invest in people through our daily interactions with them. Make a place for someone else and be open. Take an extra minute to tell someone, to tell a story, to give others direction and advice. These can be freely shared among all levels of staff. Who is going to use your unique experiences, values, personality, struggles, and triumphs to change lives, if not you? Let's not limit developing others to just sending them to conferences or giving them advice based on our successes and our failures. That's important, but we need more than that. We need a personal commitment. We have a commitment to help staff to get the day-to-day work done, but they need to think about purpose and values and strengths and the connections to their work. We want to encourage people. We want to listen to people. We want to ask questions about their experiences to help them to critically think about their lives. They may already have plans and aspirations, but sometimes we need to help them ignite their desires. Often, people are able to tell you exactly what kind of investment they need from you. Often, people can't. But when they can't, we need to learn to navigate both. I start by asking questions and listening to their responses. I coach them as much as I can to help them to come up with a solution. Often people know exactly what they want. They just need an opportunity to explore it with another person. Senior level staff, though, really do have an extra obligation to know their values and to know their staffs. Sometimes we lose sight of the people that we work with, and we aren't in tune with how they hope to move to the next level. This is true, especially once we get to a certain point in our lives. But even if no one gave us help or direction, we want to see the people in our lives go further. We can be a bridge to someone else's success. There is no record of how we made it through. Therefore, we should share our stories with our less seasoned staff. When a staff member says to me, "You don't understand where I'm coming from or what I am going through. This is probably so easy for you," I always respond with a loving smile and say, "Honey, you don't know my story." And then I share it with them. It's in those moments with a staff member or even with students who sit before me, I know that I am living in my purpose. The person sitting in front of me is that confirmation of why I became a student affairs professional. And I realize that I am residing in the place where, as my colleague suggested years ago, my gifts and my talents meet the greatest needs. Think about it. That professional investment is going on right now in this room. I am so impressed by this program that Dr. Parrott has started, this Executive in Residence program. Bringing a professional onto your campus is a double investment in you and in me. He is investing in staff by letting the professionals that he invites to campus share our experiences and knowledge. But it is also an investment in me and the other professionals who come, because we can then return to our own campuses and share what we have learned about student affairs operation here at the University of Florida. This program fosters student affairs professional camaraderie, and it builds connections across campuses. I feel so honored to have been invited, and I really thank Dr. Parrott for doing exactly what I'm talking about, providing professional opportunities for his staff. So I'm challenging you to do this for your staffs and to insist that your supervisors do this for you. Come up with the development plan and make sure that you get those intentional experiences that will help you move. I love the profession of student affairs. I want to see it prosper and grow, but it can only do that through you and the values and the work that you do. Thank you so much for having me here. I hope that the things I've said resonate with you in some way, and I'm happy to ask, what questions do you have, or what comments would you like to make? The floor is open. Thank you so much. Hi.
You talked a lot about how student affairs is especially driven by values, which I very much appreciate. Can you tell me which values to you are most important in the work you do in student affairs?
Integrity, respect, compassion, inclusion. Those are the most, for me, those are the most valuable. But of course, there are others, but that's at the top of the list for me. And I look for those values. I try to teach those values. I'm attracted to people who have those values. And I make sure that every person on my staff knows these are the things that I value. I try to understand what theirs are, and then we move forward together. I just find so many people in our profession who are overlooked, just as I was overlooked, and to help. So we're going to help students no matter what happens, but I want people to invest in you, and I want you to invest in others. So those are my top values. Yes.
Dr. Powell.
Hi.
So with values, sometimes it's hard to tell, off the bat what people's values are.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about maybe how you screen for those things, or maybe ways that you've learned over the years how to see if someone has the value of integrity without knowing them for years, for instance?
What I do is I make sure that I do reference checks. Today, most people don't even do reference checks. They will hire people and they don't know anything about them. They'll get some letters or they'll just go through an interview. And so I ask, supervisors and people that they've put down, But I also let candidates know that I'm going off the list. Is that okay? I have other people that I want to talk to. Because I was NASPA president, now there was a time when I could say I know every vice president almost. I can't say that anymore because as I've gotten older, people have retired and I know many of them. But I call other vice presidents and I'm relying on their integrity to tell me the truth. But I also ask candidates straight up, what are the things that you value? What are things that are important to you? What are the non-negotiables that, that I can depend on you for? And that's how I find out. Sometimes just asking folks. And when that's a surprise, when they're like, well, I haven't really thought about it, I give them an opportunity to think about it, talk about it, to say, come back at the end of your interview, and let's talk about that, because it's so important to me. Your questions don't have to be about what I said either. They can be about anything.
Dr. Powell, can you talk about one of the biggest disappointments in your career, or a mistake that you made and what you learned from it, and how you dealt with a disappointment or mistake?
Okay. Excellence is one of those values too that I have, and I don't mean perfection, but I mean excellence. So I want to talk about a mistake. Let me pick the best one. I've made a few. How about a bad hire that I made? I made a really bad hire. I really did. It was awful. And I checked references. I had letters, I talked to the candidate. I did my due diligence in terms of trying to make sure that this was the right person. But when that person arrived on campus, it just was awful. The person did not take responsibility for the decisions. The person, just the opposite of everything that I had been told that she was. And in this particular situation, I knew the vice president, but the vice president was out of the country. And I did everything I could to contact that person, and I just couldn't get him. And when he was back in the country and he knew that I hired her, he didn't say anything. And I'm glad that he didn't, because I needed to find that out for myself. Well, she came to campus and it was awful. Things that we would agree on, she would go away and say, I disagree with this, but this is what the boss wants, so this is what we're going to do. And she made bad decisions that were not well thought through. Loyalty is important to me, and she wasn't loyal in any way. And I've said to you, I don't want blind loyalty, but there is loyalty involved. And if it's something that I'm doing that's not appropriate or wrong or whatever, just let's have a discussion about it. We can talk about it. But it went from worse, it was bad to worse, and then worse to ridiculous. And I had talked to her, and we had gone through all of the hoops of the discipline process. And fortunately, I didn't have to terminate her. She resigned from the position and we moved on. But I don't care unless you are buried and I can't talk to you for a reference. I'm gonna get a reference and I'm just gonna wait. I wanted her, I liked her, people said good things about her, but in my judgment, I don't know really where I went wrong. But I know I went wrong because I should have waited on her supervisor. When the supervisor came back to town, he said, I would have told you not to do it. But he said, I didn't know she had applied. He had been, for 3 weeks, he was out of town and I needed to make a decision. So I did it. And so that's when I became very focused on this is how the process is going to work. And I've stuck that. And I can't say I haven't made any more bad hiring decisions. I've still made bad decisions, but that was a pretty bad one and a pretty public one. And it hurt her and it hurt me as well, because no one wants to be in a position of freeing up someone's future in that way. But that's what I had to do. Yes.
Do you have any advice on how to advocate for yourself and your personal growth without coming off as bossy or pushy, which I feel like is a common?
Absolutely. First, I say have a plan. Come up with your own personal development plan. And go to your supervisor and say, you know, I really need your help with this. Everybody wants to help, you know, I mean, they want to help somebody. And sometimes they're too busy or whatever, but you're not being pushy, you're asking for assistance. Have some ideas, if you can, about where you want to go and what you want to do, and these are the type of experiences that I would like to have. And I tell you, being from the South has served me well, working on the East Coast and in the Midwest. I just throw in that Southern charm, and it works every time. You know, I just really need your help. And you're talking about that draw, it just comes right on out. And I need you. I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny. You do whatever you need to do to get what you want, as long as it's not illegal or immoral. And as long as you know what you're doing, what's wrong with that? You ask and you say, how can you help me? Will you help me? I need you to do this for me. Can we negotiate this or that? That's not bossy. Just be kind, select your words. If you need to rehearse it before you go in, rehearse it. But, you know, it's terrible to say it, but Southern charm for me has worked. Because people are not used to being kind, and not the East Coast. They're quick and fast and things are moving. So whatever you need to do, know the person that you're asking to. Know enough about what they want. And make sure that sometimes people think that it's their idea. You can do that. It's the power of persuasion. It's, we all are manipulative. Manipulation isn't a bad thing. It can be bad when you use it to do bad things, but when you're using it to do something good, what's wrong with that? It's good for you. It's going to be good for students. It's going to be good for other staff members that you help. But know the person that you're asking, know what they value, and then go in and work it around what they believe to be true. Don't take a lot of time. Be quick and say, you don't need an answer right now, and you just need their help. When people invest themselves, that's why I said it requires a personal commitment from that other person. They'll help you. And if they don't help you, I will help you. I will do whatever I can to help anybody, because that is what I believe I was put here to do. And so I make that commitment to each of you, that if you call me, I will do my best to do everything I can to help you with whatever it is you're trying to do. And I just make the space for that. We might be doing it at 3 a.m., but that's okay, because I still have a day job. And I try to keep that job, but I will help you if I can. And if I can't, I'll refer you to somebody else who will help you. And why will they help you? Because I make sure that people owe me something. I do. I make sure that they owe me. And so when I call and say, I really need your help, people, and if they don't owe me, I figure out a way for them to owe me. You know, this is what no, I'm really serious. You think I'm kidding. I'm really not. I'm really not. I'm kind and loving and personable, and I generally can get what I want. See, growing up in a house with brothers teaches you so much. And with that one sister who hated me, the woman, she hated me until I grew up. I can even get her to do what I need her to do. But that's because I know her. I invested in her to know her. So I can take things that are important to her and turn it right around. She gives it up every time. You can ask anything. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about discernment in your career path of when it was the right time to move to a different opportunity while balancing the most important job is the one you have right now, but also being strategic in your career journey as well?
Well, my plan was real specific. And I'm going to go here. These are the experiences I have. This is when I'm going to leave and the whole bit. So I had this timeline. But I never really adhered to the timeline. Sometimes I had to stay longer than I intended to. That's at Temple because I felt like there's still work for me to do or something would come up. And sometimes I had to leave before I was ready to leave because circumstances may have changed for me. And so I think it's all about timing and instinct and just knowing. Because when it's time, for me, when it's really been time to leave, I felt it. I felt that there was no more work for me to do there. I had done all I could do, or I was bored with the job, or I made a decision it was time. It's a feeling. It's just, and just knowing. Sometimes it just gets too hot for you to stay there. There's some things going on that you don't like, you don't agree with. I mean, anything can make you move from one job to another. It doesn't have to be because it was in the plan. Have a plan, but normally in terms of how long I'm gonna stay somewhere and be somewhere and do this, a lot of times that doesn't work. But for me, it was more instinct and situational and just knowing and talking to other people, not necessarily my colleagues on the campus where I was, but talking to people outside and asking them their opinion and getting advice from the few trusted friends that I do have that are in the profession. That's how it has worked for me. But you'll know, it's something deep inside that says, that's all I can do. I'm out of here. But I never leave a job without having a job. That is so important. Don't do that. Don't do it. If you can avoid it. If you can avoid it, don't do that. I mean, I didn't have a job right after I got my doctorate. I went to the Ohio State University for my doctorate, and I was determined that I was not making a career out of being a student. So I completed all of my coursework and my dissertation in 2 years. The last 6 months, not because I'm smart, I'm not that smart. Actually, one of my brothers, we call each other by numbers, number 7 and I mean, come on, your names, whatever. Number 7 and I, we are the dumbest ones. We really are. And so the others, it comes kind of easy. For us, we have to study and pray, and not in that order. More prayer than studying, but, a lot more prayer than studying. But I was told you can either write a dissertation or you can look for a job, but you can't do both because writing a dissertation is a full-time job. I decided that I was going to write my dissertation. So on September 1st, in whatever year it was, and I got that big-time degree from the Ohio State University, I was unemployed. But that was okay because, see, by then you could take a gas credit card and you could get food. For the younger folks, they didn't serve food in gas stations. They only they only gave you gas. But then they started having items in the grocery store. A little grocery store, so you could go in there. I had a gas and a Sears credit card. You couldn't buy food at Sears. So that's how I lived and worked and juggled to make it. So that's the only time, and when I got out of undergraduate school, I was unemployed. But, I was unemployed. It wasn't easy. But, you can explain that away. I was unemployed because I got my degree and blah, 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 blah. But, that's it.
Dr. Powell,
Yes.
What experiences and opportunities would you encourage young student affairs professionals to seek out in other student affairs professional organizations?
Well, I would say whatever your professional organization is, if it's specific, like a NODA, a NERSA, a QOI, whatever it is, get involved in that. I'm a big NASPA person, and I feel like you can stay in those organizations. I know you don't have a lot of money, so you're going to have to be strategic about what you're involved in. Be involved in those things, but if NASPA or ACPA works for you, please get involved. There's so many volunteer opportunities, but when you volunteer to do something, you need to do it. And you need to do the best you can. And I'm sorry that I didn't say excellence as a value, because it really is a value of mine. And I'm sincere when I say excellence and not perfection, because sometimes I'm accused of being a perfectionist. But get involved in a professional association. Write. And you can't do all these things, so decide where your strength lies and write and publish something if you can. Work with another faculty member. Work with a more seasoned colleague and do an article together. Present at a conference, whether that conference is on, whether it might even be just go present something at the University of Florida in some conference that they're having. But I give you that advice. Learn something about the budget. They think student affairs professionals, they don't think, all we know how to do is spend money. And someone said that to me before. At one point in my career, my nephew came to live with me and he got an MBA. One of the biggest mistakes I made was not going to school with him, because I could have gotten my MBA too. And that's why I encouraged, and I was about to call his name, I'm so sorry. That's why I encouraged him to get it. If it's not an MBA, maybe it's go to a conference that's not your profession. In your profession too. If like going to the business conference, for some reason I can't tell you the name, NACUBO. They start at 9 o'clock and they finish at 3. In student affairs, we start at 6:30 a.m. and we're still going at midnight. So you'll see a different world. You really will. And go to something, take some budgeting classes, do whatever, learn something about budgets. So, it's things, have a niche. Find something that you do and become an expert at it. Whether that's student leadership, legal issues, Title IX, it's something, what leadership, whatever you do now. If that's a passion, if that's something you can do, have a specialty, because you can translate that specialty in so many other things. So do that. Now that's a nice little list for you. Start there. And then if you want some more stuff, just call me. But those are, to me, those are the best things to do. And there are many of those things I didn't do. And that's why I know they're good things to do. But then I now encourage other people to do them. Yes.
So I think, sometimes, as you move up the profession, especially you get a higher title, sometimes, people think that is all you are is your title and your position. So how do you kind of focus on your self-care, engage with yourself outside of your position and your work environment?
I am not the good example. I am so sorry. I do try, and I don't want people to think that, I don't want people to confuse a title with who I am. And I think that I've told you to please call me Teresa. I'm sincere about that. I'm clear about who I am. But what I do, now that I wasn't good at it on the front end, but what I do now is I just make sure that I'm involved in other things. I'm involved with my sorority. I'm involved with an outside organization. I am a teacher at my church. I teach some classes there. So I schedule it in, and it's a commitment for me. And although I used to get massages every week, haven't worked that in anymore. There's a difference in living in Kalamazoo, Michigan and living in Philadelphia. It just takes so much effort sometimes to do some things that I would just normally automatically do. But what you should do is take time, schedule it. If something is important to you on your job, you make time to do it, right? If something is important in your life, take time to do it. Take time to have a vacation. My vacations are not exotic vacations. I went on one exotic vacation, and the first day there, they called and told me my father had cancer and that he was going to have surgery that next day. I haven't been on a real vacation, as people would call it, since. But I do spend a lot of time with my family. My family is in Texas, and we are together all the time. I see them at least once every 3 months, and may not be in Texas. I might be. We were all together last month, and when I say all of us were together at my nephew's graduation from Duke. We just descend on a place and take it over. And people, and we celebrate. We celebrate everything. We have a party for everything. And so, as my nieces and nephews have gotten married, and they say, y'all just celebrate everything. And we do. My niece was going into the hospital to have surgery on her knee. And so we had to all get together the Sunday before, because that was the last Sunday she was going to see everybody at church. We take up like 3 pews in the church, and it's a big church. So these are long pews, like 3 or 4 pews put together. But you just take time. Bottom line is you are all you have, and your health is important, and your sanity is important. And if you have a family, try to keep your family. You know, a lot of women who are in my age group are either not married or they're divorced because they didn't take time to be mothers and to be wives. I mean, they were chasing this dream. And, you know, and I'm not married because I chased a dream. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have children. I'm going to have it all. But I gave a speech one time at the Women's Symposium. And the first line of the speech said, and one day I woke up and I was 40. And I had planned for everything, but I planned a career, but I hadn't planned a life. Don't get caught up in that. Plan your life. It's important. You know, put as much energy in those plans as you're going to put into a career plan, because you can't survive in a career if you don't take care of yourself.
Time for one more question. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
We kind of talked about this in another session, but really talking through the balancing of the political waters of student affairs and higher education, and just really looking at balancing that with, you know, talking through promotion, being your authentic self, all those things that I think sometimes are not so tied to the political side, but have such an influence on, like, those other components that you look for in student affairs.
So the question is...
So the question is, navigating political waters, but while still being able to stay connected, because like you talked about the morals, values, but also looking at promotion and like understanding that sometimes navigating those political waters sometimes means you have to give up some things to get some places. So talk about your experiences with that, if you don't mind.
Okay, and people have heard me say this. I will negotiate things. Politics are everywhere. They're especially in higher education, as they are everywhere. And they're in student affairs, in our own divisions, in our own departments, sometimes at the division level, sometimes just at the university level. And so that's why values are so important to me, because in political disagreements or political situations, there are some things I will compromise. I tell people I'll go this low. I'm not going lower than that, though. So, you know, politics are a part of it. Sometimes I have to do things that I disagree with, but they're not illegal or immoral. I think when you're talking about things, you can disagree depending on whatever that political thing is. But so people can disagree on, some of the things that don't touch on values, and then you just do it. But you got to remember that there are consequences to everything. So you can't go around saying, I'm not going to do that and I'm going to do this. And you can't say everything that you think and everything that you feel. Be strategic about what you do, what you don't do, what you believe in, what you're willing to do. And sometimes you have to give up a position to allow your position to allow someone else's position to be there. You have to be collaborative. You might have to give up a promotion at a place because it's something that you don't want to do. Just do it carefully, but see, when you are grounded in whoever you are, you know those things that you can compromise on and that you can't. So politically, when those type of things come up, you kind of know where you stand and you know the value of a decision that you can make or that you can support. And I say do that, but know that there are consequences. So not doing something doesn't get you a promotion. I am convinced that probably wasn't for me anyway, because I am a person of faith and I do believe that, and I don't want to offend anyone, but that God gives me and places me exactly where I'm supposed to be at whatever time I'm supposed to be there. So my faith helps me to do those things. And it might be something else for you, but for whatever it is, know what it is and stick with it. You give up some things, but you get some things. And for me, things happen exactly the way they're supposed to. I don't see it at the time sometimes, but I know that it is. And I stand firm in that. And I'm going to tell you something. I say some things sometimes, and I really say them with conviction, and I really mean them. But I'm going to tell you, God has a real good sense of humor when it comes to me. He has done two things. First of all, I am at Temple University, and at Temple University, you need to be in perpetual prayer. Because I'm telling you, Teresa's not going to pray if I don't make these things happen. So he makes these things happen so that I'm like, Jesus, you know my heart. And I have to pray sometimes in the middle of the day and in the middle of the night. But he knew that. So that's why I'm at Temple, and I accept that. He has a sense of humor. And just a few weeks ago, there was a student, and this student attends the church that I used to attend in Kalamazoo. So when she became a student at Temple, they let me know that she was there. And we were having this heated conversation. And we weren't arguing, but she was beating herself up about some things that she had done and things that she thought. And I said to her, from my heart, I said, what you have to understand is that sometimes God gives his toughest assignments to some of his strongest soldiers. And I meant that. Less than 24 hours later, here comes my assignment. And it was a tough one. And I had to laugh at myself because I'm like, Lord, what did I do to deserve this? So, I say a lot of things, but, and 99% of them, I'm being serious. I really am. But just navigate this career. Give to students all you have. Take care of yourselves. Make sure you're getting what you need to be successful. Plan your lives as best you can. Plans, you just have it down. They're meant to be challenged and changed. But be grounded in whatever grounds you, be grounded in that. Thank you so much for having me here and for your attention today. Thank you so much.